All right, ready? All right. Welcome back to our latest edition of the Roll Tide Draft Blog. I'm Baker Lehman here with Herbie May, and college football season has come to a close with the Ohio State Buckeyes winning the first annual college football playoff. And Herbie, we're going to talk a lot about that game, but first we're going to talk about the losing quarterback of that game, Marcus Mariota, who is widely considered to be the top QB in this year's upcoming draft. But he didn't really play so well if you look past the box score. So Herbie, there have been some questions about, just spread QBs in general, specifically Oregon QBs transition to the NFL. What is your opinion of Marcus Mariota after that game?
Well, Marcus Mariota is a guy that, he's a real justification for some of the guys that are currently in the NFL. So, you've got a couple players that you think about in the same class, Russell Wilson or Johnny Manziel, and the guys that are doing well, and also a kid, Jimmy Garoppolo, behind Tom Brady. He's the same type of player in a way. And the difference between, Russell Wilson and Johnny Manziel is what I think is just decision making and knowing that, the NFL is a different game, and it's a different speed, and there's different types of players that can wrap you up and bring you to the ground. And Marcus Mariota is basically, if he can transfer into the NFL, then he justifies the Jimmy Garoppolos and the Russell Wilsons and the Marcus Mariota. And he is the new style of quarterback that needs to excel in the NFL, because, the Peyton Mannings and the Tom Bradys and the Joe Flaccos, they're kind of the last of an era. And there'll always be those gunslingers that are coming out of college. But, the new age quarterback, Aaron Rodgers and Drew Brees and Andrew Luck, are mobile. And you have to be mobile in this new league. You have to be able to get out of the pocket, but you also have to be able to make decisions and get to the ground and slide and protect your body. Because, if you're running, Cam does not have as long of a career as Peyton Manning does, for just because he's taken hits early and he's beat up and he looks beat up, and RG3 pushed the envelope a little too early. And Marcus Mariota, it was sad to see him in that national championship game, because he basically showed the fear that every NFL team has right now. When he gets under pressure, when he gets flustered in a big game situation, will he be able to make the throws and make the decisions that NFL teams are looking for him to make? And unfortunately, he didn't, and it cost him the game.
For me, what I saw out of that game from Marcus Mariota, I agree. You're right. Ohio State did a phenomenal job of just pushing him around, really is the best way to show it. They set a tone early. They were dominant physically. Their size-wise, they overpowered Oregon. They kind of, showed that Oregon hasn't quite gotten over the whole hump of, we're not soft anymore. We can handle, playing big boy teams. Didn't look like it when they faced a very physical Urban Meyer team. And for Mariota, yeah, he just got rattled early. And I think you're right, Herbie, that these quarterbacks who are mobile but are throw-first mobile, they can escape the pocket, run if they need to, pick up first downs with their legs, but they are mobile in the pocket. And I think that's the most important thing, is they can set up a pocket, step up into it, and move around in that pocket to make throws, not to gain yards with their legs, but to make throws. And Marcus Mariota, for the most part, has shown that he can throw on the run, buy time to create throws. But the problem is that Oregon offense doesn't make him, look for extra reads.
Right.
Russell Wilson is an incredibly intelligent QB who is always looking for his second, third, fourth, even check down fifth read. Where Mariota with the Oregon offense, it's zone read, roll out, either run or hand to the running back. It's all just reading the defensive end and then throw to a guy who's generally wide open just because of the scheme that they're running and the hurry up scheme that Oregon plays with. But you look at Mariota's, there's a great stat, and I can't remember the exact number, but there's a great stat that said before the Ohio State game, Marcus Mariota on his first passing read was, completing 75% of his passes. On his second and third reads, only around 30 to 35% of his passes. And that just tells me that he is not ready for the NFL game, because the Oregon playbook doesn't make you actually, there's really only maybe, 10, 15 plays in that Oregon playbook, and it's all reactionary after that. And now, while the NFL is obviously, you react to wherever the defense gives you in a certain way, you have to know a full playbook. At Oregon, it's the hurry up, get to the line, and it's those signs with, the 4 pictures on it. That's the play. And there's only, they don't have, an arsenal of 62 signs that they hold up just throughout the game. probably 4 or 5 of those signs, they all mean different things based on what the defense does, or what or who the defensive end rushes, or who blitzes, blah blah blah, and it's completely reactionary rather than making proper reads, setting up a pocket, and making precise throws like we've seen Mariota do. But in that Ohio State game, you saw him get big boyed, and you saw him just look flustered and look like he couldn't handle the big stage.
And so I'm going to keep comparing these two quarterbacks, in Russell Wilson and Marcus Mariota. Russell Wilson comes out of Wisconsin, the sort of pro-style offense, and basically, he's a 5'10" guy, but he plays quarterback like the 6'4", gunslinger, which he's not, but he has the mental capacity for it. And when I say that Marcus Mariota is one of the top prospects in the draft, this is no quarterback class like we've had over the past couple of years. Marcus Mariota and Jameis Winston are not starters in the NFL right away. I mean, they just, they are. I think they're worth the talent, and I think unfortunately, both of them might get shoved into a starting position. I would hate to see it, because I think Marcus Mariota needs at least a year or two behind a starting quarterback to learn to become that progression reading quarterback, which, there's no denying he has an unbelievable amount of talent. But if he can combine that knowledge that he got from the Oregon offense and then combine it with a pro-style offense in the NFL, I mean, there's no denying that he has the absolute talent to be a Pro Bowler in this league. And I just, while I love both these two quarterbacks, and I think they will go early, maybe 1 and 2, I think there's a lot of work to be done on both of them. But I think you're right. I mean, the Oregon offense has affected him, and that's his one major flaw, because talent is not one of them.
See, I agree. And all the reports you hear about Marcus Mariota, he's a great kid. He's a smart kid. He's a hard worker. His intangibles off the field are great, blah, blah, blah. He's never been in trouble. He's probably, never had a drink of alcohol, any of that kind of stuff. But, it's the simple fact is that these spread offense QBs struggle because, like I said, they can't read a playbook. They can't make extra reads. And you're right, the talent is there for Marcus Mariota. We're never going to question the kid's physical talent, but it's simply, is he tough-skinned enough to, kind of put in the work that he's going to have to do to change offenses, change, almost style of play to a certain point, to make sure that he can be a successful NFL starter. And when I say tough-skinned, I mean, can he handle constant criticism, not just from the outside media, but from people in his own locker room? He's not dealing with, as a junior now, a redshirt junior, he's not just dealing with, 18 to 19-year-olds, 22, 23-year-olds. He's dealing with guys who are 30, 35, linemen who have been in the league forever, and he has to come in as a young quarterback, as a quiet personality, because, Mariota doesn't have the same personality as Jameis Winston. He is a much more quiet soul. He is quietly respected. He lets his play on the field do the talking, which is all well and good. But in the NFL, you see that fail because you don't earn the respect of those 30, 35-year-old linemen, those Pro Bowlers who've been around forever, like they do, the 18, 19-year-old fresh recruits who come into the Oregon offense and plug and play. And I worry not just about Marcus Mariota's ability to absorb an offense, as intelligent as a kid as I'm sure he is. I worry about his ability to absorb an offense and to command a huddle and to command a sideline, because I've seen, from my own perspective as a Cincinnati kid, seen Andy Dalton, who has won 40-plus games over 4 years and 4 straight playoff experiences, or 4 straight playoff appearances. But still, every time I see Andy Dalton, struggling or, just on the sideline, he doesn't look like he's in full command of his offense, where Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, all these guys Russell Wilson, all these guys who we consider top-flight QBs, have full command of their team in that huddle. And a guy like Russell Wilson, who's only 2-3 years into the league, without a doubt has the full respect and full attention of that huddle, and had it from his rookie year.
Yeah, and Mariota, I think he is tough-skinned, man. I think, one thing I'm not worried about him is his leadership ability. And, I watched him stand on that podium, and I watched, true emotion come out of that kid's, speech. And I think he's very humbled by the player that he is, and I think he knows what's ahead of him, and I think he knows what would be expected of him. And I think, I think he's the perfect prospect to come in and be behind someone for a couple of years, and. But I've I really do like this kid. I think he's the guy that should go first overall as of right now. I want to see these guys in their interviews in the combine, and obviously, I mean, that's going to be probably one of our biggest debates is Jameis or Mariota. Over the next couple of months here. So, the national championship game was too bad, and I think it's going to affect his stock a little bit. I don't know if it's necessarily hurting it, but I think it's just going to put it in question.
Well, Herbie, you're certainly right that we are going to be debating Jameis and Mariota for the remainder of the offseason up until May's NFL draft. But that's all we have for this conversation. We're going to keep doing a lot more offseason posts now as we get into NFL draft season, so keep it right here and keep watching the Roll Tide Draft Blog. That was good.
Nice.
All right, so state of college football. And then, stuff like I'm going to say, I think personally that the playoff to go along the lines, I don't know what you're thinking, but the state of college football, I think that the playoff proves that any kind of conference dominance is dead. Yeah. Not only have teams caught up to the SEC, and the SEC's utter dominance is obviously over. That was obvious, these past 3 seasons. But I think that, even if another conference starts to supersede the SEC as far as depth of teams, it doesn't mean that they're guaranteed, 7 straight national titles as a conference. I think the playoff totally is a coaching thing now.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I think the college playoff was perfect for football, and I think it was.
It was a success because as much as I fucking hate Ohio State, and I wanted Alabama to obviously win, and I know a lot of people were rooting against Ohio State because as much as people dislike Alabama, they dislike Ohio State a lot more.
Right.
But it's a coaching battle now. And even teams who don't recruit like Alabama and Ohio State, who have excellent coaches, a la like a Michigan State, if they find a way into the playoff, they're absolutely a contender. And the problem is they aren't going to be in every year because they don't recruit the same way.
Dude, I think TCU would have been a way bigger contender than Florida State this year. I mean, obviously you couldn't put them in there, but
yeah. But yeah, obviously, I mean, and we can get into that. Talent versus coaching and disparities, what it might be. All right, so let's dig into this one then, too. This could be a long post. All right. Welcome back to another edition of the Roll Tide Draft Blog. I'm Baker Lehman here with Herbie May. And now that college football season is over and we've seen the Ohio State Buckeyes take the first college football playoff national championship, we're going to talk about the state of college football and how the results of the playoff have affected, the landscape and how the future of college football is going to look with this new playoff. So, Herbie, what was your first reaction, not just to the semifinal results, which were shocking to a lot of people, but the eventual result of Ohio State taking home the national title?
Well, it was such an exciting season for college football, and for me, Ole Miss was in those top 4 spots, for about a week or so, or however long it lasted, and it provided a different type of fan experience as well. So I'm just going to say that and get that out of the way. I mean, it had an entirely new element of fanhood, which was great for college football. It really was. And I think we were talking about it before, and I'm sure you're going to harp on it. But what this college football did is it takes away any specific conference dominance. I mean, you literally just said it. It gives any team an opportunity to show up, play ball, and win a national championship, no matter what conference you're from. And I think the committee was right on their picks. I think it was tough. I mean, I think some people, I would argue that TCU might have belonged in there over Florida State, but then again, you couldn't have done that because TCU wasn't undefeated, Florida State was. And and then again, I don't know if the committee even thought about that, but I thought you saw everything that I expected Florida State to get walloped, and I expected Ohio State and Alabama to be a great game, and the national championship really was a great game as well. But it showed that any team really, if they get a chance to get into this playoff, they have a chance to be a national championship, no matter what conference they're from. And I'm sure you might say it in the next thing as well. I'm not sure if I really have a problem with an 8-team playoff. I think that it might almost be better.
Yeah. Well, I came into the playoff saying that while Ohio State's statement against Wisconsin, warranted them getting in, but I was like, Baylor deserved to get in over Ohio State, who eventually became the national champion, because they beat TCU, who, TCU finished on a hot streak and obviously, dealt your Rebels a pretty harsh bowl loss. Baylor, almost won the Cotton Bowl, and if it wasn't for a great coaching job by Mark D'Antonio to keep Michigan State in that game, Baylor would be, looking at the same thing. We deserve to be in. Ohio State came in as kind of the only one that people are like, oh, that's questionable, blah, blah, blah. Well, they won the whole thing because they have a phenomenal coach in Urban Meyer. And I think that is now the key to winning the national championship, more so than ever. Obviously, great coaching has always been a huge factor in college football, especially in the postseason. But now more than ever, conference dominance is dead. Not only has the rest of the nation caught up to the SEC, and after their pretty historic run of dominance, these last 2 to 3 years we've definitely seen the gap close, and I think that gap is definitely closed in. Now that being said, there's still going to be a conference hierarchy that I believe that the SEC has the best depth overall of teams. But in general, the top few teams in every conference can probably at least compete with each other, a la maybe a couple of exceptions. I think that you're going to need talent and, good team structure to get through the regular season to either win your conference or be playoff contenders. But, those 3 weeks heading into the playoffs, because you're not just competing for one game now, just one singular bowl game. You have to prepare for 2 games and 2 elite-level opponents, basically. That is where coaching comes in. We're moving into what I think is going to be a golden age of coaching in college football between, the reignited Saban-Urban Meyer rivalry. Oregon and Mark Helfrich, getting into the national championship again and coming up short. Jimbo Fisher post Jameis Winston now. I'm going to be very interested to see how Florida State responds to not having Jameis anymore, who obviously really helped push them over the hump with his amazing talent. And then how teams a la a Baylor, a TCU, and I just mentioned a Michigan State with Mark D'Antonio, who is a phenomenal coach, but those 3 teams with Gary Patterson and Art Briles, respectively, as well, they don't recruit like an Ohio State or Alabama does. They don't get 5-star after 5-star after 5-star. Recruit just coming in who, are ready to play at day one and all already 6'6", 270 pounds, run 4.3 40s kind of guys. They develop players through, a couple of years. So while every year Baylor, TCU, and Michigan State might not be in the playoff, the years that they have developed and have enough developed talent and have enough depth to get in and do get in, they're as dangerous as any Alabama or Ohio State in there because they have phenomenal coaches. I'm very excited to see how that moves forward. And just like you said, I think this year just proved that we are a lot closer to an 8-team playoff than we even expected after year 1.
Yeah, and I think it really does change up the recruiting game. I mean, I think, so many of these coaches go to these 5-star players and like, listen, just, if you're in between Michigan and Florida, just come to the SEC. We've got a better chance of winning a national championship, and that's been
our conference play launches us up the BCS no matter what, which doesn't happen anymore.
Exactly, and now the point is, listen, I'm Jim Harbaugh. I'm sitting here trying to get this 5-star recruit down from Florida, or whatever. Like, listen, I don't care what conference you go to, but when we get into the playoff, we make a run every time. You can cancel out, conference dominance. Like you said, you can cancel out conference dominance, and you can use the playoff to your advantage. Ohio State, Urban Meyer can be like, listen, who gives a crap about the Big Ten or the SEC or the Pac-12? Come to Ohio State because we've proven that we can get into the playoff, and when we get into it, we can win it all.
Yeah.
So that's a huge. I think it's a huge recruiting boost, and it might just even out the playing field, and people get the ACC more involved, they get the Pac-12 more involved, and I think it's all good for football.
What I think you're going to see more than just, I think Urban Meyer has just proven that he might have one of the easiest recruiting jobs in the country because it'd be like to any quarterback he wants, he can just say, look what I did with 3 quarterbacks over the course of a season.
Seriously. My third string pulled off 3 of the greatest victories of all time.
Yeah, exactly. With a third-string QB who, has been on campus for a few years, but, exactly. It just proves that his system is almost flawless.
Unbelievable.
More so, I think that what this does for not just, the playoff and concerning college football, I think not only like I said, a potentially golden age of coaching in college football. What we could see is the resurgence of a lot of great programs if they can get the good coaching. A Michigan with Jim Harbaugh. Not only do I think that that's a great fit and a great hire for the Wolverines, but he's a phenomenal coach. And like you said, coaches can say, it doesn't matter what conference we're in. If we're sitting there at the end of the day, I think that we can win this whole thing. I think that you can coach us and you can help us win this whole thing if you commit to the University of Michigan. Even a school like Miami under Al Golden, or should Al Golden kind of get pushed out after the way that Miami hasn't quite responded to his style of coaching, Miami has a chance to research and be like, look what we've done in the past, depending on who they hire. Look at what we've done in the past. Look at what we could do in the future if we can get in the playoffs, simply because it doesn't matter that they play in the ACC. They potentially have a shot at the playoff if they win their conference. LSU, any of these teams who you might consider, maybe not a great college football program, but isn't one of the blue bloods, like Alabama and Ohio State, a Michigan, Florida State and Nebraska. And Nebraska is a school who generally doesn't recruit well, but obviously has an amazing history, who has a chance now to make it in because of just potentially the recruiting potential that they have. And I think from here on out, conference, obviously you have to get through your conference. You probably have to win your conference. But overall, these coaches aren't going to have to just say, come play for us. We're the best conference. We have the best schedule. We can compete for a championship simply based off our conference schedule. These coaches now can say, come to my university. Come get tutored by me and help us get into the playoffs so that I can help you walk away from this university from a ring and get as you try and move on to the NFL. And I think we're going to see a resurgence of great programs. I think that the playoff is more than a big success, despite how you and I might have felt about the result, because especially you saw, I think the two more talented teams in the playoff didn't win it. They got knocked out. I think Alabama and Florida State's roster are both more talented and deeper than Ohio State or Oregon's, but Ohio State and Oregon had better execution and were coached better in game. I think and that's the battle at the end of the season, is who can get coached better and who can execute better.
Who's ready to come in to this 4-team battle and ready to take their team to the national championship? I mean, that's what it comes down to. And when you think about if they put 8 teams in this thing, I mean, then there's no power. There's no dominance. I think 8 teams would be. I mean, it would be draining for any. You might see. And I think that's probably the question. For these kids, putting them through all those extra games. But I think 8 teams is definitely something to be considered, and it would be really, really fun to see. I mean, that would bring in the Big East, as far as I'm concerned.
The AAC.
Yeah.
How far, Herbie, in your expert opinion, how far away, how many years away do you think we are from an 8-team playoff? Excuse me.
Ugh. I don't know. I'd probably say 6.
6. That long.
Yeah. I think you've got to let it ride out, and if you keep getting it, I think you say 6 tops, 4 minimum. I think you've got to let this thing play out and see what teams keep coming in. If you get a different 4 teams into this playoff every year, I mean, you're justified. I mean, if you get a couple guys coming in once or twice over a course of 4 years, but if you get a big diverse group every year, and it just makes it just better for college football. It takes the dominance out of it. It spreads out the recruiting. It's better for schools that aren't doing well financially, and it's all a vicious circle. And I think in the long run, I think there's no problem getting to 8 teams.
Yeah. See, I believe that the contract that ESPN has signed for the playoff is for 6 years. If it's not 6, it's 7. But either way, from what I understand, that contract is very loosely written, so that if you can continue to see the revenue stream and the excitement that this thing has built, and what turned out to be a great race at the end of the season between Baylor, TCU, Ohio State, Mississippi State, all those guys were in it till the end. I think that this could really be done in potentially the next 3 to 4 years, simply because, what's another week of games? Extra revenue stream, and as sad as it is, that's kind of what it's about, especially for the TV stations. And
Absolutely.
So I think that pretty soon here, you're going to see a lot of talk, not just a lot of talk, but a lot of calls for time for 8 teams. You know, because you saw, I don't think that anyone can dispute that the top 6 teams this year, all of who are in contention, were the top 6 teams in the country. You know,
no doubt.
a Mississippi State who lost late to Alabama and to Ole Miss after having a phenomenal year. You saw Michigan State's really only their 2 losses were to the 2 national title contending teams. They were, you know, they were close, but they were still just out. And Baylor and TCU, honestly, if it wasn't for the Big 12 wimping out on declaring one of them champions, they were, you know, maybe a better conference decision away from being in the playoff themselves. So I think that the playoff nailed it, absolutely nailed it. You know, as a Crimson Tide alumni, I would have loved to have beaten Ohio State and gotten there myself, but I think that's at the end of the day that's erroneous because it showed at the point that we've been making that it's not about what conference you won. It's about who coaches, or it's about how you coach and how you execute in these big games. There are no foregone conclusions anymore. Like when Alabama played Notre Dame, the foregone conclusion was that Alabama was going to crush Notre Dame, and they did.
Yeah.
Florida State and Auburn, a lot of people figure that, Auburn's in the SEC, even though they're kind of the underdog to an undefeated FSU team. Auburn's going to find a way to win because of the SEC. But FSU had to come back, but, you know, kind of shut down Auburn and played a phenomenal game, what turned out to be, you know, a great last BCS championship game. And now in the playoff, you got an even better matchup of games. And I think that it's only going to continue to get better, especially because I think next year we can really look at a TCU team that's going to be right there in the end as well and plays a very exciting brand of football. Alabama should be back in it. Ohio State should be back in it. I'm sure Baylor's not going anywhere. Michigan State should probably have a pretty phenomenal team. I think it's going to be just another great year of college football heading into 2015.
So sad that it's so far away.
I know. We're going to have to do it all again next year, but that's what we're here for on the Roll Tide Draft blog, to help you get through that offseason with a lot of player analysis, recruit analysis, and all of the NFL draft you can handle. So thank you for watching another post here on the Roll Tide Draft blog. We'll be bringing you stuff all offseason, from player evaluations, mock drafts, our first big board that we'll hopefully be putting up soon, and a lot more information that will help you get through that withdraw that you'll have without college football. Thanks for watching, guys.
Their favorite time of year. That's what this blog is for. All right.
Very good.